Welcome back to another episode. So here we are at the conclusion of everything, or at least of Season 1, with a satisfying conclusion. This episode provides some much expected resolutions and changes the courses of a few characters, whereas Episode 6 focused on scale. This week's dwarves and Southmen are completely absent, so the show's creators, John D. Payne and Patrick McKay, have dug a little bit deeper into everyone who is still present. Even if it doesn't completely nail every moment, it does it well enough to make me eagerly await the release of Season 2. The stranger gets besieged by the weird cultists we previously saw, the Dollar and her sisters, in this week's first major narrative, which is a bluff. Shock. When they refer to him as Lord Sauron, he appears to ruminate on the name and try to relate it to himself. It's a brief but delicious moment of satisfaction for everyone who chose him in Sauron's identity bingo. The attempted rescue of Nori and her small allies would be made into a terrible joke if the stranger really was Sauron. The Dweller, at least, is also a shapeshifter and appears to have comparable powers to the stranger here, so the four Harfoots are up against skilled combatants. It represents a shift for Middle-earth, which frequently lacks overtly magical elements. Tolkien's wizards mostly rely on knowledge, manipulation, and influence rather than casting many spells other than a few fireballs. However, when Nori, her mother, Saraswangabani, and best friend Poppy are in danger when Sadok Burrows suffers a terrible injury, the stranger finds his nerve and strength. The four Harfoots are up against skilled combatants. At least the Dweller is a shapeshifter and appears to have abilities comparable to those of the stranger in this instance. Middle-earth typically doesn't have a lot of overt magic, so this is a change. Without much in the way of conventional spellcasting beyond a few fireballs, Tolkien's wizards tend to know things, alter things, and influence things. The stranger, however, ultimately finds his nerve and power when Sadok Burrows, Nori's mother, and Poppy are critically hurt and everything looks lost. The stranger can finally go and find himself in a place called Rune in the east. He now knows that he is an Astari, or what is often known as a magician. Bing. There is a conclusion that feels more fitting, despite being quite foreseeable. The stranger has also adopted what Nori told him. He declares loudly that he is excellent, and you can tell that he is now confident in that claim. They return briefly to the Harfoot camp, but there Nori decides to go with him on his search. She bids her family a heartfelt farewell before leaving with the stranger to see more of the globe. Then, gasp. He says something that is obviously a reference to Gandalf when he was momentarily lost in the mines of Moria in the Fellowship of the Ring. That undoubtedly puts the debate to rest. The Númenóreans sail back to their island home while grieving their losses in the episode's second, more condensed plotline. The now blind Queen Regent Emriel is comforted by Elendil, but nothing he says can ease his own sorrow over the seeming loss of his son Isildur. When they get there, they discover that King Tar Palantir, who had passed away while they were away, had mourning flags hoisted. However, not before alerting Elendil's daughter Irian about the Palantir upstairs. It is unclear what impact it will have, but given Pharazôn's serious expression and the individuals standing behind him, Emriel's situation appears to be dire in more ways than one. In the meantime, Halbrand, who is critically ill, travels with Galadriel back to Eregion. While Galadriel describes her miraculous return to Elrond and Celebrimbor, who are naturally surprised when someone last seen in armor on a direct stairway to heaven shows up, carrying a sick human behind. He is given up to the elf healers. Galadriel explains about doing the 8-kilometers front crawl back from Valinor and why she felt it necessary. Elrond brings her up to speed on the existential threat to the elves, and they have some bonding time. It's fantastic to see two characters add genuine complexity and depth to their roles in the golden light and manufactured beauty of the elven city settings, which were once again expertly realized by all that Amazon money. Not only do these performers deserve praise because they are both outstanding, but also the director, Wayne Chi Yip, and the series' consistently perfect composer, Bear McCreary. Celebrimbor is working to find a way to use the meager amount of mithril they currently possess to save the whole elf population. A group of Tolkien aficionados shout "I knew it" at the television as a recovered Halbrand enters with some useful tips on smelting processes. According to lore, Sauron originally collaborated on the development of the Rings of Power with the elven smiths of Eregion under the name Annatar. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that Halbrand is doing the same thing right now. Galadriel, on the other hand, is not, and she persuades a neighboring librarian to look into the family whose crest Halbrand is sporting. In her defense, 1,000 years is almost yesterday in elf times. So what do you know? The line died out a long time ago. Who is capable of monitoring these people, etc. The showrunner's determination to keep Galadriel on the side of the angels seems to have driven her quick turn from comrade in arms to wary guard, rather than any openly suspicious behavior on Halbrand's behalf. On the other hand, it's high time someone began interrogating him directly. The Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power series finale is an explosive episode and a gratifying, mystery-solving end to this first season that emphasizes character and plot development rather than just swords and sorcery action. Although this show has occasionally strayed from the canon, it has often done so for good reason. It makes use of the paucity of Tolkien's appendices to add fresh tales to the lore. Because of its high level of inventiveness, it has managed to get over the typical drawback of prequels, which is that we already know what's going to happen. The Lord of the Rings. The Rings of Power finale is a thunderous episode and a satisfying, mystery-solving climax to this first season that focuses on character and story advancement rather than just swords and sorcery material. For the most part, the canon of this show has occasionally been a touch sloppy, but for the most part it has been done on purpose, making use of the paucity of Tolkien's appendices to add fresh tales to the mythology. Because of its high level of inventiveness, it has managed to get over the typical prequel drawback of revealing everything that will happen. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.